afternoon, everyone. It is February 24th, Thursday afternoon, and we are here merely perhaps minutes away before the arrival of the first snow. It might already be snowing out right now. I did not get a chance to check, but according to the forecasted computer models, there is a machlokus between the European computer model. This comes from the Windy app. The European computer model was updated about 9 hours ago on this app, so that computer model shows the snow will be starting in West Rogers Park. Specifically, West Rogers Park will be moving in after 3 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, it will already be snowing. But according to the GFS model, it will already be snowing by 2 o'clock right in the West Rogers Park area. Other parts of Chicago will start to see snow significantly earlier, even 1 o'clock, mainly the southern portions. The snow will start to accumulate. According to the GFS, a pretty quick pace already starting at 4 o'clock onward. And then that pace will continue solidly for many, many hours after that. Yesterday, I saw on the WGN weather app, it was showing, which probably comes from Tom Skilling, it was showing that there will be a solid 12 hours of snow, of a steady snow, a solid, lasting all the way through 2 to 4 in the morning. So starting this afternoon, anywhere between 1 and 3, according to what he said on the television video, and according to between 3 and 5, according to another place that was also written by him. So we have contradictions in those sources, 1 to 3 and 3 to 5. If you average it all out, it will be starting between 2 and 4 p.m., and that's consistent with the various models that we're seeing between the GFS and the European computer model. So what we're doing is we're taking what the model is saying, and we're adding an hour and subtracting an hour. It's going to be in that 2-hour window, and then we get between 1 and 5 p.m. is when it's going to start, since there's a 2-hour difference between the two models. All right, moving right along, the significant snow, especially at midnight, it makes a lot of sense, because when you look at the cloud cover heights, the clouds will be much, much deeper, going much further and much taller into the atmosphere at around midnight. More significant moisture is available at that time. But according to the GFS model, there already might be significant snow accumulations. The snow might be coming down at a moderate rate already this evening. But by midnight onward, certainly nothing is certain, but there is a good chance, even based upon just the cloud heights, that we're going to be seeing a half an inch of snow an hour. Total storm accumulations around 3 inches from the system snow. Additional snow is forecasted to happen probably about an inch, maybe even 2 inches for the Chicago area. The West Rogers Park area in particular will be seeing lake effect snow. According to the GFS computer model, most of the snow moves out of the Chicago area or the Chicago metropolitan area already by tomorrow morning. But it does not move out of the West Rogers Park area. It remains in the West Rogers Park area. In fact, according to that model, it's pretty much in our area all day. There's a couple hours here and there where it's off, but it should be light. The forecast is for it to be light, and even so, maybe we'll end up with an additional inch. So 1 to 2 inches for additional inches, perhaps, for the lakeside areas. Tom Skilling mentioned yesterday on his video on the app, it's also on the television, he mentioned that there might be some counties that walk away with 8 inches by the lake. That's a possibility. Some areas might be getting 6 to 8 inches if you are right along the lake. That is a possibility, but in general, 2 to 5 inches or 2 to 6 inches, 2 to 4 inches is for most areas what's going to happen, but his official forecast is 2 to 6 inches. National Weather Service official is 2 to 5 inches. AccuWeather is 3 to 6 inches. But on AccuWeather, if you really, they provide an enormous amount of information in regards to their forecasts. The 3 to 6 inches is that's their presentation to the public. That's the professional way to word the forecast, is 3 to 6 inches. Usually at this far in advance. We're holding 1 hour before the storm. In some areas, it actually has already started snowing. Usually, the way it is presented to the public will be the actual forecast. So if they're forecasting 3 to 6 inches, that actually is what they're forecasting, 3 to 6 inches. But in this case, we're not holding there yet, says AccuWeather.com. You go to the Wintercast, and it tells you that the probability of 3 to 6 inches is only 47%. In order for something to say that we are expecting it, the National Weather Service has an actual definition. It has to be 80% or higher. If it's not 80% chance or higher, then the words are it's likely going to happen. If it's only 50% chance, there's a good chance it will happen. So what AccuWeather is saying is that there's a good chance we're going to be seeing 3 to 6 inches, but we're not necessarily expecting 3 to 6 inches. In order to really tell you what we are expecting, you have to add in the 1 to 3 inch range. There's some type of like a 30% chance of a 1 to 3 inches. And when you combine the 1 to 6 inches, there's an 80% chance or more of the Chicago area seeing between 1 and 6 inches. So that would be the most accurate way from AccuWeather. Now, could it be 2 to 6? It could be 2 to 6, but their categories are 1 to 3, 3 to 6. So we're forced to go with AccuWeather. What we could expect, there's a good chance it's going to be 3 to 6, but the whole area could expect the snowfall amounts to be between 1 and 6 inches. National Weather Service has 2 to 5 inches. Tom Skilling says 2 to 6 inches, but some lakeside areas might get 6 to 8 inches. National Weather Service forecast discussion pointed out that 1 inch to 1.5 inches of additional snow may fall by the lakeside areas. Personally, I saw that 0.2 of an inch of water equivalent is what's forecast to happen, and the snow to water ratio will be 15 to 1. That brings snowfall totals to 3 inches. And then when you add in that additional inch or 2 for the lake effect snow, we would end up with perhaps up to 5 inches, maybe even more. So you also want to give yourself 1 inch in either direction. So 2 to 6 inches makes a lot of sense to me. And we'll see. We'll see what happens over here. The one thing that the National Weather Service has pointed out that they are monitoring is a possible mesoscale, a very miniature storm system that might be developing right over Porter County for tomorrow. It was pretty impressive to me. It's nice. Those things usually are responsible for thunderstorm complexes, those thunderstorm complexes that happen in the summertime. Though the mesoscales, those are the things that bring the heavy rain. So some of the models are indicating, says the National Weather Service of Chicago, they say that there's a possibility of a mesoscale, a miniature storm system developing on Lake Michigan right outside Porter County tomorrow. They're not sure about it. It's something that they are watching and monitoring. What will the consequences be? I don't know exactly, but probably snow. Moving right along, we have this low pressure system, which is when it goes up into the atmosphere, it gradually moves north. So the surface low is all the way down in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Missouri, that area. And then as you go up into the upper atmosphere, when you get way up there, well up there, the low pressure is up in the northeast Missouri, solid low pressure in northeast Missouri. When you continue going up, it gets even further north than that. That's not really, I guess, so significant for us. It's significant for the professional forecasters trying to figure out precipitation type and a bunch of other things. But we have, we do have this low pressure system. I think the significance really is that because this low pressure system is so weak, or at least it's not so well defined until it gets past the Mississippi River. It's not really so well defined, so it's hard to find on the map sometimes. When you go into the upper layers of the atmosphere and you look at the wind, it's much easier to find this storm system, but realize that the surface low is holding probably about 100 miles southeast of wherever it is at 5,000 feet up in the upper atmosphere. So a place like Cincinnati, for example, later on tonight, maybe 9 or 10 p.m., the low pressure 5,000 feet up in the atmosphere will be right over the Cincinnati area, which means Cincinnati could expect southwest winds aloft. Southwest winds aloft, up there, southwest winds. But on the surface, winds are going to be already from the northeast or north, because the surface low is going to be probably about 100 miles south to southeast of Cincinnati. The story really is that Interstate 70 and then turning into Interstate 71 is going to be the dividing line between snow and mixed precipitation. That's Interstate 71 for Cincinnati, Interstate 70 for the Springfield, Missouri area. That's really going to be the dividing line. Areas north of that line have the higher chances of seeing these higher snowfall amounts in the 3 to 6 inch range, and areas south, or even 1 to 3 inches. Areas south of that line might end up with just an inch or less. Areas along Interstate 71, perhaps just an inch or less. But those are the areas that you have to watch out for the freezing rain and the sleet and stuff like that. So they really have it worse. The areas getting that freezing rain and sleet. We heard yesterday about the tremendous, not just lightning. It wasn't just we had an ice storm with sleet was falling. Really, an ice storm means freezing rain. But it was sleet, and shoveling sleet is harder than shoveling snow. But it wasn't just that there was sleet falling in Texas and Arkansas with lightning and thunder. It wasn't just that. It was the fact that the lightning also was cloud to ground lightning. Cloud to ground lightning, dangerous lightning. It's severe thunderstorm. This is severe thunderstorm criteria over there, and that's stuff that was happening yesterday. That area of energy and impulse has moved off and is in Pennsylvania right now, and that has weakened. The current situation is where we got all this energy out in the southwest deserts with limited moisture, but enough moisture to produce 1 to 2 feet of snow in the Sierra Desert Mountains. That has moved into the Midwest and has collided with the real moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, producing even heavy rainfall amounts in some locations. 1 to 2 inches of rain, and flooding could be a concern for some areas. The Chicago area, again, 1 to 8 inches if you want to consider all sheetas, or 3 inches far away from the lake, a little bit higher amounts as you get closer to the lake. Moving right along, we pointed out yesterday that temperatures made a dramatic, amazingly soft. In February, when you start to see the highest temperatures in the U.S., let's forget February, let's go back to December. It's just always amazing as you see those temperatures drop and drop. Once the desert Southwest is finished, once their summer is gone, there's a drastic drop in the daily hottest temperature in the United States. Once Death Valley is out of there, okay, you have Rio Grande Village, Texas. Once Rio Grande Village, Texas is out of there, once Texas is out of there, then it switches over to Florida. And once it switches over to Florida, that's when we start to go down into the 80s. So it starts off when Death Valley is the main city. The main city every single day. That's the hottest city in the U.S. When that's the city, you'll see high temperatures in the 110s, sometimes the 120s. That's going to be the hottest temperature in the United States. Eventually, the heat comes to an end in Death Valley. Texas takes over. There still will be areas in Arizona. Yuma, Arizona might take over. Some areas like that. But at some point, Rio Grande Village kind of takes over. In fact, it's quite a competition between Rio Grande Village and Death Valley, California sometimes. What actually is the hottest temperature, even in July, Rio Grande Village is unbelievably hot. And if you're looking up Rio Grande Village on AccuWeather and it's July and it does not say brutal heat, that means you have the wrong Rio Grande Village, and check a different weather app, because this is a station that apparently many do not have access to, because you'll see in the Chicago Sun-Times, they don't mention this Rio Grande Village as the hottest temperature in the U.S. Many days it is. The Chicago Tribune mentions it. The Sun-Times doesn't. And this is a consistent theme, by the way. Throughout the year, there are cities that are mentioned in the Tribune that the Sun-Times doesn't mention. They'll never mention Death Valley. That's something, I guess, they've eliminated Death Valley. It's not fair. It's not fair to the other cities. This is a competition. How could you do that to the other cities? That you have to get rid of Death Valley. But they also eliminated Rio Grande Village. either they eliminated it or they only have the weather information for Rio Grande City, but not Rio Grande Village. So that's going to be a big difference. The city also goes by a different name that starts with a B, or you can get very close. The weather station for this B city is it's like a Mexican city. It's very close to Rio Grande Village. Anyways, once you get the desert Southwest out off the charts for the heat, then we switch over to Texas. After Texas is no longer, once the cold air moves into the Midwest and the cold air starts to even make it down into Texas, they're off the map. That's already maybe November. By December, it's Florida. Unless Santa Ana winds develop in South California, then we might see some California highs of temperatures in the 90s, 80s, or even 90s. That could happen during Santa Ana winds, even in the month of January. Okay, but 2 days ago, we heard... 2 days ago, the hottest temperature in the United States for the very first time was in Falcon Lake, Texas, where the temperature hit 100 degrees. Thank you, crowd, for that's just amazing stuff. I mentioned it on the previous podcast, but I figured we would mention it again. Temperatures yesterday, 40 below zero in the upper Midwest. Excuse me for that. Wind chills were 40 below zero. Temperatures were in the 20s below zero. The temperatures were around 40 degrees below normal, says the Washington Post. The temperatures were 40 degrees above normal by the East Coast, says the Washington Post. Speaking of above normal on the East Coast, Washington, D.C., says the Inside Weather podcaster for AccuWeather, and I don't know his name. I should, but I don't. He pointed out that it was 77 degrees yesterday in Washington, D.C., and this morning temperatures were 36 degrees. There's a mostly rain event expected over there, and from anywhere Philadelphia south, it's mostly rain, but this precipitation is moving into, we mentioned earlier, Pennsylvania. It's already there, but more of the precipitation with the stuff that's in the Midwest today will be moving into the East Coast, Northeast tomorrow, bringing ice storm. New York City, perhaps some ice for tonight into tomorrow, but the snow generally will remain, the real heavy snow, the 6 to 12 inches will remain, perhaps Boston, but mostly north of Boston. Providence is just outside the bullseye of just 3 to 6 inches. That storm is going to really intensify, but by that point, it's going to be out in the middle of the ocean. Tom Skilling, meteorologist Tom Skilling, who is a Bucky he's an expert on the Chicago weather because he's been here. The local meteorologists are always the best, and he's been here forever. Weather's been his passion ever since he's been very young, and he has an enormous amount of knowledge about weather. He informed us and he informed the world last night that computer models indicate that the Pacific air, not just with the Pacific air, this is the actual weather forecast, is that after this Arctic blast comes in following this storm system, we're going to see Pacific air move in for the latter part of the weekend, but then even warmer air. Temperatures go into the 50s and possibly even 60s for the latter part of next week, especially next weekend. Temperatures 50s, perhaps even 60s, and then a series of storm systems will come by the week after next weekend. I've noticed that he is accurate. He's accurate when it comes, especially when it comes to these things that are like far out from now. Just those things. Those are the things where you rely upon your feeling and your expertise. When it's right in front of your face, people are relying more upon the computer models, and things can get very complex. A lot of the complexities that other meteorologists have to deal with today and tonight, for Chicago, they don't have to deal with it as of now because the mixed precipitation is only a question for the southern portions of Chicago. So I guess to some extent they do. Places like Kankakee, areas like that, but places north, Chicago northward, it's really an all snow event. That's the forecast here. We will mention, the Washington Post has mentioned, and others, it's all over the place, that there's a major snow in Japan. I believe something similar happens every year, and the thing that happens is they get ocean effect snow, and those things pile up to feet. I don't know if this is from an organized storm system or if this is just ocean effect snow. It sounds like ocean effect snow because if you look in this certain website that tells you how much snow is falling in a city that I don't remember, I can't pronounce the name, but it's in Japan. It's been about 12 inches every day, about 11.8. It tells you in centimeters because the United States is the only place that uses the Fahrenheit system and the inches and all that. So, but it's about 12 inches that's been falling in some of these hardest hit cities on a daily basis, at least starting from yesterday and more, starting on Tuesday, yesterday, and then today, 12 inches a day. It's usually ocean effect snow. They say people in those areas, though, have never seen snow like this. So it's hard to know. It would be interesting to see whether this is from an organized storm system or not. Something which was pointed out also, Tom Skilling pointed this out, and that's this is something that I've always heard by ice storms, but he has confirmed that this is also true by snow in at least a similar way. They say by ice storms, it's very, very difficult to get freezing rain to accumulate on streets in the month of February, even when the temperatures are under 32 degrees, and that's because of the strong sun. Even though it's cloudy, even though the air temperature is under 32, somehow the streets, unless it's a bridge, the streets it's difficult. It's difficult for the rain to freeze. It's just difficult for that to happen. It happens in January, but in February, it's hard for it to happen. So a lot of these ice storms have to do with the timing. The impact they have on driving really has to do with the timing of when it happens. He pointed out yesterday that some of the snow will be melting. Some of the snow will be melting just because it's February, and it will be happening during the day. It so happens here in the Chicago, it seems like the major snow, most of it's really happening after sunset. So not much is going to be melting around here. Anyways, thank you for listening, and I wish everyone a great day. I have to do something to add a niggin to this. It's a little bit more complex than usual, but hopefully there will. Should we do another niggin? Let's think here. Should we do another niggin? I want to hear the crowd. What does the crowd say? Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of that of a